Well, I want to say how much it means to me to be here in this space. I myself experienced firsthand the quality of innovation and humanity that's part of this aphasia program, and I'm so grateful to Dr. Cherney and the staff who worked with me and with my sister on multiple occasions. My sister took part in the research program and also in the intensive program here. And sometimes I wish, if it weren't for the winter, that I lived in Chicago, because this is such a great community, and I find it really exciting to be in the room with everyone today because I already start learning from you. So as Dr. Cherney mentioned, my sister had a massive stroke in 2010, and it really came as what I can only describe as a shock that just blindsided me, because she was young and she'd been a lifelong athlete. And overnight, she lost her ability to even say her name, and she had very severe hemiplegia also, so she could not walk or dress herself, and she had to come to live with me and gave up her own home to live with me. We made a new life together, and it was a very active life. We learned to tap out our sentences, and we studied melodic intonation therapy and would sing our coffee orders at our favorite local cafe to get the words out. And her physical therapist discovered that my sister loved disco dancing. And so she got her dancing, doing the electric slide and the hustle in PT. And then my sister was a textile artist, and we found an adaptive stand so that she could embroider. But despite that, aphasia really remained the most stubborn aspect of her stroke recovery. And my sister conveyed to me that it was much more difficult for her than the movement impairment. She said, if I could choose one thing, I would rather have less movement and more language. So she really struggled, and we both struggled. And I wanted to find a psychotherapist for her in Los Angeles. And you would think in that community where there's this great, well-resourced medical environment, there would be psychotherapists who know about aphasia, but there weren't. And then I discovered that it was actually a nationwide issue, that there was a shortage of psychotherapeutic care for people with aphasia. And I'll say, and a shortage for their family members, because really to understand what people are going through as family members, you need to have some awareness of what aphasia involves. So I started to do a little bit of, looking into depression and surviving stroke, or TBI, and aphasia, and discovered that about it's estimated that about 1/3 of stroke survivors have post-stroke depression, and that depression leads to more of a struggle to recover, that the outcomes are not as good if depression goes untreated. But we have the situation where it's more difficult to measure people's moods if they have aphasia. And as a result, people with aphasia have not even been included in the studies of post-stroke depression. I chose this picture of a boat out of water because I think it's a symbol of something removed from the context that once defined it. And that's the psychological impact of aphasia, that the core of a person's identity and the context that they inhabited is challenged in the world. So I believe that psychotherapy as a field must do more to meet the needs of people with aphasia, and all of us in the room today are part of creating aphasia awareness so that this situation improves. The risk of depression also exists for family members. When the voice of one person in a family changes, every single relationship and role in the family is altered, and conversations in the whole household change, and some may go silent. So everyone is looking for a new voice. In the case of my sister, she really wanted her identity to be known in the world, and a key part of her identity was her life as an artist. So she stitched this piece that I now have hanging in my dining room with silk embroidery floss to say, I am an artist. She wanted her identity known. And I wish I could have brought it today to show you. It's thousands of stitches. It took her countless hours. And for me, this embroidery now is a metaphor for restoring life with aphasia. I was reminded again today talking with people, it's thousands of stitches to make something beautiful again. It's thousands of stitches, and it's so worth it. I've been really so intrigued to hear about people's stories of how the recovery continues to unfold over years. As Dr. Cherney mentioned, as a result of the experience with my sister, I decided to really make the focus of my own work more about understanding aphasia and how it impacts families. And I got a small grant in 2017 to explore the subject, and I returned here to take part in one of the intensive programs again, which my sister had participated in. What interests me is how we can repair family conversations and make them new. There's a UCLA psychologist named Daniel Siegel, who some of you may have come across. He does a lot of work in mindfulness. And he says that relationships allow us to feel felt. I love that expression, to feel felt. It's really a primary experience in a human life. And without it, there's great loneliness and even risk to our survival because we're healthier in connection with each other. So communication is so much more than just the transfer of information. It really stitches us to each other. But how do we feel felt in the presence of aphasia? I think many people with aphasia are, at the outset, assigned countless language worksheets with sentences like, the dog is brown. And it's hard work and often dull. And I remember my sister doing hours of worksheets, and she was bored and frustrated because they seemed suited to a child. They weren't about things that interested her. And you can spend hours on those worksheets and still not feel felt. We really need to get at our own stories. Recovering language with aphasia depends in part on the principle of salience. I learned that here. And salience means how important and relevant something is to us personally. So the more meaningful a subject is to you, the more likely you are to get the words out. So that means recovery comes from doing things that matter to you. To love and be loved matters to us as human beings. So when we focus on the quality of connection with each other, we stand to benefit both language recovery and our emotional health. Many of you here are familiar with the life participation approach to aphasia. It's about recovery through engagement with real life interests, goals, and relationships. And in recent years, I've learned about aphasia groups doing all kinds of things, from books to music. And in my sister's aphasia group, there was a group of friends who loved meeting to play backgammon on the weekends. And in this picture, my sister won a backgammon tournament for the first time. And she got a lot of language out that day. She was actually bragging that she had won. You can see her opponent was not happy about it. Playing backgammon really helped her with learning to count again. She got much better at that and much more confident. Now, you'll be surprised to notice that the man who's so unhappy in this picture actually fell in love with her. That's also life participation, that there can be romance in an aphasia support group. Now, I teased my sister that she would go to an aphasia support group and come home with a boyfriend. Creativity is at the heart of who we are as human beings. So, for example, my sister's friend, Mike, was a jazz sax player before his stroke and his aphasia. And 8 years later, I just talked to him, and he's playing his jazz sax again in an ensemble. And he has re-entered the world through that thing that he loved, and he really thought it was going to be lost to him. That was his language. Music was his language. Now he's out there playing and performing again. So it's wonderful if you have a creative resource, but you don't have to be an artist or musician to be creative. Relationships, too, are fundamentally creative. Every conversation is a creative act. We create meaning through our connections. And today I want to encourage collaborative storytelling as a creative practice, especially in our families. We witness each other when we share life stories, and it affirms our relationship and identities. And best of all, it's free and it's portable. You can do it anywhere. So here are a few benefits of the process. We know identity is a rich and complex creation, but it can go unspoken with aphasia. Aspects of a caregiver's identity may also go unseen. Aphasia is a piece of the story, one piece of the story, and it's not the entire story. So this is about asking, what else is true about me? What else is true about us? What else defines our identities? And unpacking the history of shared lives can honor the fullness of who we are. Health crises overturn life order as we knew it. The familiar parameters often disappear. Telling your story helps untangle and make sense of what might otherwise feel like a chaotic jumble, everything knotted up. Life becomes more coherent when it's mapped out and anchored by a narrative. In this process, it's crucial to remember that mistakes and challenges have value. I came across this quote by Dr. Kristen Vickers-Douglas at Mayo Clinic, and she said, "One way to boost your confidence is to allow mistakes. Don't expect perfection." Around the world, in many different cultures, children are told fables and fairy tales to learn about life. These stories are never just about victory or easy times. There's always a task or a life assignment, and along the way, the hero encounters difficulties and hazards. Storytelling can integrate profound challenges like this. Finding the value in all we've survived creates an awareness of cumulative achievement. A hero does not always need to be cheerful. He may have to tell you very hard things. You do not have to fix those things, just listen. Explore your family culture as if it were a village and you're an anthropologist. What are the favorite meals, customs, rituals, and values? What defines it? What were the big historic events? What's worthy of celebration? And you might think about exploring your personal microculture. What defines you? And what I mean by personal microculture is the sum total of your experience. Every piece of art you've ever viewed, every song you've heard, every movie you've seen, every conversation, those things that have helped you develop your opinions, your preferences, and your passions. Use all your senses to get at those memories. For example, what was the soundtrack of your teen years? Choose a piece of music to describe each life chapter. Music pulls up such vivid memories. In the car on the way to Aphasia group, my sister Melissa and I sang songs to a station that played music from our growing up years. We were not happy that it was a golden oldies station. We were out of tune, but it was joyful, and we felt ourselves again, and we sang loudly. In a study at the University of Helsinki, post-stroke patients who listened to music daily for 6 months showed better outcomes on verbal memory scores, focused attention, and mood. Then there's the visual power of an image and choosing pictures to illustrate your life. A picture's worth 1,000 words. What pictures define a life chapter or an experience? On the right, there's my friend Mike, who has just started living independently again in his own house 8 years after his stroke. And in this picture, he's meeting his new dog to take home to his new house at the animal shelter. And on the left is a picture of my sister Melissa with her dog Benny. And this is a moment to make a pitch for dogs. Companion animals who also make it possible to feel felt. Flavors and smells are often important connectors to our stories. You can see I've got bacon here, the smell of a newborn baby, the smell of the earth after rain, the smell of your favorite perfume. And then also flavors. Oftentimes a shared food or recipe will pull up a deeply felt association of the people with whom you shared it and the occasion. And in this instance, my sister and I had the experience of making our mother's Christmas spice cake together. We baked it, and the cake opened up a conversation for us after our mom had passed away. You can also explore and develop your personal archive. We found old letters and read them aloud. We found yearbooks and photos to help fill in and support the arc of a narrative. Repair and survival are radical acts of creativity. We might yearn for predictability in life, but the unexpected also leads us to discovery of ourselves and unimagined capabilities. My friend Susan Swan is a stroke survivor who leads this aphasia group at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. It's a vibrant, remarkable group of people who've become very close to each other, and they're active in community. And Susan told me once, you never know what will become your teacher in life. And she told me that she believes that her aphasia became a crucial learning experience that she would no longer want to be without. And I'll be honest, at first I struggled to fathom, I struggled to understand how there could be worthy lessons in something so difficult, and I was irritated and confused by the idea. Because of my experience with my sister, I decided to write a psychotherapy thesis on aphasia, and at the time, Dr. Leora Cherney said to me, understanding how to communicate with aphasia might just make you a better therapist. Well, finally I came to understand the value of our journey. These days, it can be a rare experience to slow down and listen deeply. People everywhere are chronically distracted, staring into their phones and texting instead of talking and making eye contact to the person right next to them. Among the families I see as a therapist, I've encountered kids who have to say to their parents, hey, I'm trying to tell you something. Look up from your phone. So aphasia can teach us how to show up and listen deeply. And as a couples and family therapist, I want to leave you with this message. Learning to communicate with aphasia can make us all more effective in our relationships. Having a truly good conversation in the presence of aphasia is training for better communication in the world overall. We can learn from the person with aphasia how to be a better communication partner. And there are lessons for more humane relationships as a result. We must insist on it. So, take it slow and pay attention. Mistakes have value. Listen with care. And eye contact says, I see you. Maybe each of us today goes forth from this room and we form a community and we agree that this matters and we make some change in our environments. Thank you for letting me share this day with you. It's an honor to be here, and I have to say it's actually one of the most precious things I've been invited to do since my sister's stroke, because it also helps me understand how my own life was changed and expanded through the experience of loving someone with aphasia. Thank you so much.